right, a good day to all. Sam here with you on a Saturday, kind of midday. And what are we? Saturday, May 12th here, I should mention. And we're doing something different today. So we put out a kind of polling that we do amongst our members every day. We put it out to our Twitter followers that we would chart up whatever cryptocurrency they chose. We put it out to a vote, and we have a winner after a few days. And this is a project that I was not familiar with. So this is, I believe it's pronounced Zilliqa. Relatively new project, very interesting, and certainly I'm not surprised why members Twitter followers are interested in getting some analysis of this coin. It's a pretty interesting project, and if it only hit I've got it up here on Binance. It only hit Binance. What are we? Well, that low here is March of this year of 2018. So pretty much of a straight rip. So a lot of interest in this project. Not the easiest count I've ever seen. A little tricky here we're putting our Elliott hats on. But a good project. So I wanted to show a couple of things. So a lot of you are familiar with my use of CoinGecko. Here is a good place just to get a snapshot of a coin. So if we go back here and we look at Zilliqa, shit, I'm gonna have to find out. Zilliqa, I will use this as a reference. So as you can see here, I like to look for coins with a scale of 50 or higher. So we can see at 59 doing pretty well for a coin that's this new. I see good interest here amongst the development community, and we've got fairly good liquidity. Now, switching over to where this to where this trades, if we go over to our trading exchanges, kind of interesting. So the bulk of the volume here, at least as it relates to the last 24 hours, is all to Bitcoin. No surprise here on Binance. But you can see there's a fairly good spread of how it's trading. We're getting Bitcoin, dollar, the Korean won, Ethereum as well. You know, Binance would be the major exchange. This is a major Korean exchange, but Ubit and Huobi, I don't know how to pronounce that one either. They're comers, right? They're comers. So you just look at the volume here. So we're going to look at it on Binance here. But it's interesting here as we get down to the dollar tethers. So we've got a little bit here. Most of the trading, you see a lot of spread trading against Ethereum as well. But let's go look at it on Binance to Bitcoin here. So what I have here now, this is being the 3 hour. I'm going to show it to you here just blank here. So just at first glance at this, as I often use this as a kind of a way to approach a coin first time I'm looking at it, and I had not charted this project before. But when I bring up a chart like this here and I'm looking kind of longer and I can see the history of it. So the things that I'm interested in right off the bat is where are the deepest retracements? So I got one here. Obviously I've got one happening here. You know, back here it's a little less clear because those retracements help you kind of identify where you're likely looking for swing relationships, so that you know, with our Elliott hats on, that those can be the tops of waves and the retracements that carry on that progression. But this was not actually the easiest coin, because it really, if you look here, it starts to move. We get this kind of choppiness, but it's not until about here mid-April that we start to get some good structure to it. So I'm going to go from this chart here where we've looked here and kind of identifying these retracements, and here's the work that I've done on it. So let me go over here where I've got some work on this. I'm going to pull it off to the side because this is actually kind of important here, and it was a little bit tricky in the beginning. So if you look at where we're starting, the idea and the reason to go through this exercise, the reason to do this is so that you get some clarity on where you are in the count. Because at first glance, when we look up here, I mean, this big rip here, even if you just did something simple, like, well, where's the strength in the oscillator? So if we look here at this oscillator, given the peak here, so your first inclination is to say, well, I want to give this I want to label this as my third wave. Well, if that's my third, I got to kind of back into that and say, okay, well, if that's my third, where's my second? Where's my first? Right? So, you know, again, it seems to start right around this area here is where we get some structure to this, if I can get that hot here. So if I work off of that low, we start to develop some structure here. So again, I'm kind of backing into this. So I'm thinking, well, if this is my third here, do I have a completed count from, if I use this as, this is the deepest retracement prior to this launch? Does that make sense? Do I have a 1, 2, 3? Well, of course, right off the bat, I notice here, this gets my attention. So if I just start wicking off these, the pivots that are important here. So looking there, again, I'm creating this count halfway through our history of it. But if you can see it here, swing low, we come right between the 50 and the 618. I get up almost to my second algo target here. So a very real contender here for a 1, 2. Contender for my 3, 4, and it would appear that what I've got here now is an extension in the 5th. So giving me, if I think about that, it gives me from this low here to this high, I've got a completed 5-wave structure. And the fact that I've got this 1, the retracement on the 4 that doesn't overlap the 1, leads me to be inclined to count this as one completed 5-wave structure. Right, so if that's my third, then I'm kind of working backwards saying, okay, well, looks like I can get 5 here. So if I pull this off to the side and open it up, it kind of makes more sense when I do that. And you say, oh, wow, if you were looking at it on that date here at 422, that looks like, hey, I got a pretty good rip here. So again, looking for those tells that would help you identify the likelihood that I've got a 3 and a 4 and a 5. Well, look here. So if I take from my 2 to my 3, I come down to the tick. I catch the 50% right here, and we come to this prior congestion area. Very common pattern. Now we come a little shy of the algo target, right? Just because it's there, you're not always going to get it. But I do get the subdivision that I would want to see there, and even within the third, I've got subdivision here to give me a completed 1, 2, 3, 4, right to the 50, boom, to the tick, and then up we go to give me a 5. So working backwards, I can get a 5-wave structure working from this pivot here. Well, if this is going to be a completed 5-wave, and then as I just showed you, I've got a completed 5-wave here, and that's got to be a 3, then this has to be a 2, and this has to be a 1. So to kind of back into it as I'm kind of taking you through this process, that's got to be a 1, that's got to be a 2. Now I got to get up here to get my 3. All right, so potentially now a 4 going in, we've got a 5. Okay, so reorienting that. So I'm working backwards here. I've got this. I know this is important. Here's my 1. So I've got this 5-wave here. Get this lined up here. So there's my 1, 2. That's my deepest retracement from this pivot. So the likely contender for the second, and of course it's right in the pocket, right where we would expect to see that second. So again, I'm working backwards. So I've got my completed 5-wave count from here. Well, if that's pardon me, I'm completed here to a 1, 2. I'm completed to potentially my 3 here, and some sort of a 4 going in now. Is this the 4, or do we have another? Is that just an A, B, C? The B is going in of a slightly larger degree, and the 4 will be over here to be considered as a retracement, right? We don't know yet what we're going to get here. Is this going to be are we going to get a 335? Are we going to get a flat and expand it? We don't know. We don't have enough information. This could be an ABC into the 4, and this is a 1, 2, and we're going off into the 5th. No way to know just yet. So again, just working through that process. If this is my start here of that 1, 2, 3, then I got to get to that with a completed 5. So this has to be a pivot that is resulting from a completed 5-wave structure. So it's a bit of a challenge here. Again, I'm going to do that same thing here and just kind of walking you through this. The one thing that was very clear here, looking at how this started, was from this pivot low, I had this good 5-wave structure. But note here, the 4 overlaps the 1. So it's a diagonal. So given the clean 5-wave structure with a diagonal, that could only be a 5th. Well, it could be a 1st, but given that I've got history here, I've got to back into that as well. So working backwards, that's got to be a 5 for an ending diagonal, leaving me my 4 here at the pivot before it goes up, leaving me all the way back into this. Could I have a 1, 2, 3? Well, is it there? Well, I've got a 1, 2. Again, I take you through this just partly for the learning process, but partly to help us get ultimately clear on where we are to the hard right edge of the market. Well, if that's a 1-2, granted that's a shallow 2, but I get right to the 127. For my third, that's a contender, and it looks like I've got it looks like I can see a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into my third. So here, then I follow that. I get some complexity here. I get an A. Looks like I've got an A, B, C into that fourth there. Right, so 2 to the 4. Right, it looks like it went deep, but working from that 2 to my 3, that is definitely deep for a fourth, but we also get this overlap here, so I've got to have yet another diagonal. That's the only way I can get that to work, with this being the launch point for the fifth. So this completes here as a one wave, thus allowing for the slight overlap here of the 1. So I've got a completed diagonal with an ending diagonal within it. So that in white here, 1, 2, 3, 4, deep 4 overlapping the 1, technical as we get the 7, 8, 6, and then up I go for the fifth. So that, now if we go to the largest degree, so if I go from swing low, I've got a 1 wave in. I've got potentially a 2 wave in. Now let's go, let me get that up to a larger, sorry, 4, 5, those have to go off to the side. Can't start it without finishing it on TradingView. So let's get that, actually let me do that again. Let me just get rid of that. So working, I want to go to a larger degree is what I'm after. So let's try that again. Here we go. Now I want to go from here, I want to go, if that's my 1, that's a completed 1, potentially my 2. But from there, I also know that I'm trying, let me see if I can scrunch this without having to hit those letters. Maybe I can't do it. Can I? Yeah, I can. Okay, so let's try it that way. So 3, going to be way up here, 4 and 5. Now I'm going to go to the largest degree on that. So let's go up to intermediate, and we'll go to blue, just so I can distinguish that. Okay, so again, working backwards. What do I have here? So let's get this off. So I've got potentially now a completed 5-wave structure here. So there's my 1. There's my 2. Now, take note here. I am going into another completed 5-wave structure. So no, see right here, you don't know. So you'd be thinking 1, 2, 3. So it'd be that would be the logical place where you'd have the third. So you'd be thinking 3, 4, right? Makes sense. So on the largest degree here in blue, you'd be thinking, oh, I've got a complex start to this with all of these diagonals, but I can qualify it in Elliott rule set and give me a 1 wave. Here's my 2. Right? So again, it's here wicking off the low. Is it technical? So we can measure it. So I can just pull from this little marker here, and I pull to my low. Well, we're a little shy. It looks like it's a front run on the 50. Slight front run on the 50 for my 2. You know, you like a 2 to be at least to the 50. That's close enough, though, that it certainly doesn't disqualify. We know 12% of the time a wave 2 will be that shallow, will be only as shallow as the 38. We get almost to the 50, so I'm comfortable calling that a 2. But coming off of that, I get this 5-wave structure. So I'm inclined now to think, okay, well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'd think that was 3, this was 4, but then putting this all into context and looking at where we are. I guess I can lose that. Now that we have this big rip up here, 1, 2, let's think about it. If that's 1, 2, then this is 1, 2, because remember where we started. We want this to be our third because that's the strongest wave. So what I see is that we've got 1, 2, 1, 2. Right, and part of the reason I get to that conclusion is because of the depth of this retracement. So given that I'm looking for a 2 to go at least to the 50, if I get that right on the 1, I'm getting my 50 almost to the tick. So I've got this 5-wave structure implying a 1, 2. Here's my big 3. So what does that mean? It means that this is it's very bullish for this coin. So if we look here now, so 3, 4, and 5 to go in. Well, we don't know where that's going to be. To complete, you got to move all of this off. To complete potentially the third, right, relative to this 1, 2. So to get that organized in that fashion, that's why you have to kind of work backwards from this pivot and this peak going, that sure looks like that's the third wave. So how can I work backwards into this and qualify this all along the way? Right, knowing that at this point here, right, as I tried to emphasize to you, you'd be thinking that that was 1, 2, and this was the third. Right? You'd have no way of knowing how far that was going to go. So if I use my tools here just to kind of make that point, if you looked at this as a 1 and this is my 2, well, we're going right to the 200%, right? Common target for the third is 1618, 175. So the fact that I get to the 200, you'd be thinking 1, 2, 3, there's your 4, but no way of knowing that what was coming next, right? So if you bought this as a 4 and that went up for your 5, see, it's tempting to want to do that. And when I first brought it up, I thought, oh, okay, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's the 5. So we've had an extension in the fifth. But, upon closer inspection and working backwards as I just took you through that process, and again, just doing something simple like, well, where's the strongest wave? Well, look at the oscillator here. It's very, very hard to look at this and not call that my third. So how could that be my third? Well, from there, again, that's that whole process I just walked you through as to how we arrive at that. With each one of these pivots being qualified, can I make that work? Does that fit? Do I have a potential third in place here? And if I do, how does that relate to this earlier structure? Right, we got to qualify it. So I see 1, 2, 1, 2. We're in the third, going up for the 4 and the 5. So here's where, we're obviously interested in where's the next opportunity. Certainly, we've got a bull move underway. So if this is so now we're relative to white here. So if this is my 1, 2, I put in my third. Well, of course, just like any fourth, we're looking for a relationship here for the fourth relative to the third. So I'm looking for the retracement of the entire third wave. Well, so far we've come, now potentially, right, it's in. Right? It could be, and that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're going up for the 5. Right? Certainly that's a possibility. This as a fourth wave, right where you'd anticipate it, right, but 38 to the 50, right? Very strong market, where you're going to get a slightly more shallow retracement here, but given the length of this third, this doesn't surprise me that we get through the 38. We come into the 38 to the 50, and this may have a more complex correction. So one possibility as we look at this is that the 4 is in, because let me blow that up here. So because we've got a 3-wave correction. We've got an ABC, and we're technical here. So one possibility is that we've got this going 1, 2, and we're into the 3, 4, 5. Now we got to lower that degree. So let's get back down to something that makes sense. Okay, so possibility, I got 1, 2. Right? How are we going to know? Well, we can qualify it as a third. We can look here. So if you're not long already, I don't know that I'd be a buyer here, right? As we come up to this prior pivot, but right there, just as a third, so minimum qualification, we got to get equal to or greater than the length of the 1 wave. So if that's a 1, 2, I'd be looking for some subdivision here to suggest, does this have the right look, feel, symmetry of a third wave? Right? A third wave, fairly easy to spot when they're underway. Right, as we see one there. So could that be the third? Could be, because I've got this beautiful ABC, right? I've got just textbook 3-wave correction, and I've got subdivision within my B wave. Look at the ABC I've got in the B, and I'm gonna just eyeballing it. Bet you that's technical. So if I work from my swing low to my A, we go right just shy of the 618, right to algo target, and actually get the wicks through it. So I've got a technical ABC. Right, algos are participating, no question about that. So that's a contender for 1, 2. At first glance, though, my inclination was to think that I had a more complex correction given the depth, of the length and the amount of time. So my first inclination was that we had this going in, that there'd be another C here. So I would be moving this 4 off to the side. Right, again, it's a little bit of just experience and just knowing that given the size of that third wave here, relatively, so you could think of it this way, rule of alternation, relatively simple, just a 3-wave drop into my 2 down here. The fact that I've got complexity here doesn't surprise me. So if this is, let's put this up a degree and change the color. So let's go to blue here so this makes sense. If I go to There we go. So I put possibly 3, 3, 5. So possibly we'd be looking for a flat, right? Do we have 3? Just impossible to know until we see what kind of move we get. You know, if we're going up here, because we know, right? If we're looking at if this is an ABC into an A wave, the fact that we're just coming into the golden zone here, this could very easily be topping here and sets us up for this push down here. Here's the algo target from that 618, sets us up as a contender here for the 4th. Get those right on that. I've learned you got to get them right on that little black dot to get these to cooperate. Okay, so AB, so that's a possibility. All right, that's certainly a contender. And how will we know? If this starts to blow higher and higher and higher, then we got to fall back to 1, 2, 3's going in. We're going up to the 5th to complete the 5th of the 3rd here in white. So what else could we use? Well, when we got 3 pivots, we could always consider a pitchfork here. So if I go to my low here, I'm hypothetical, but we know it's right at the 618. Possibility if we start to head down here. Here's my 50 working from this 2 low. So the fact that I might push down here to the 50 and put in what would be a classic flat, now I got to get 5 out of here. So I'd be double bottoming here at the A at the 50. That would not be surprising to me at all. If we put in something like that, AB came down for the C at the 50. We know algos kick in there. What's their target, right? So they're looking to catch that from that ride from that 50 to that target, which would be right in sync with the Elliott count, as that would set us up for this 5th going in here, which would bring our 3rd over here. Right, so all of that is potentially in play there. Now, so how do you know? So what's the choice? Well, as far as I'm concerned, this would be a very high risk time to be a buyer. So I would not advocate buying here as we come up into this area of, you can keep it simple and say, well, last 3 times we got up here, that seemed to be enough, and the market didn't accept it. The fact that I'm working in 3s here still has me leaning towards that as a more complex correction going in. But I could very easily be proven wrong if this starts to develop and head higher, showing characteristics of a 3rd wave. Again, I could go down to my oscillator and say, well, this obviously was the peak. If this starts to accelerate here, I should see signs of that. So I'm trying to, again, even if I went from the 30 down to the 15 minute, which is as low as I'd go, if I look at that and I go, this looks more to me like it's completing. So if you look here, so I've got an A, there's my 3 wave into my B. I come down into my C. I've got a contender here for a C. So I've got 5 there as my C. So this, again, that could be it right there. But if I were coming out of that, this looks more to me like I've got 5 here. So I suppose there's a possibility here that we could count it this way. So if you were for the more bullish count, you could look at it this way and say, well, looks like I've got a 1, possibly there's an A, B, C into my 2, and it looks like 1, 2, 3. Do I overlap there? Looks like I do not. Again, that's not coincidental. So I've got a motive wave here. So does that look like the 3rd would be there? Well, of course, that's unlikely, right? So as the 3rd would be shorter. Again, 3rd doesn't have to be the longest, just can't be the shortest, but that looks like I'm completing a 5-wave structure here. So I suppose one possibility and one alternate, right? We always got to think, well, if it's not that, what could this be? Well, this could be the 1 wave. This could just be the 1 wave of the 3rd wave going in. That's a possibility. Let's go to another color here and we'll take this down. So possibility here. These are just contenders. This is just the reality you got to deal with. You got to look at it and say, well, what else could be happening here? What can I see? Well, I can see I got 5 waves here going into something here that appears to be topping. So could be 1. So as I counted here in green, 1, 2, 1, 2. Possibility, right? So we'd be looking for that. If that's a 2 here, we'd be looking for that. If I get that dialed in there, could be coming in here. There would be where we'd be looking for that 2. And granted, I'm down here on the 15 minute where things can get squirrely, but I've got a hot box there that would set me up on the assumption that 1, 2, 3, 4, all of this is going much higher. So 5 up here, right? Again, you kind of look at it and say, well, if that's 1, 2, how are we getting there? Right, so then this would be complete, so that ABC would not be relevant. This 4 would be in, Right here down on the 15-minute, you can certainly make that case. 1, 2, 1, 2 going in. Where's 3, 4, and 5? Well, 3, 4, 5 going in, which would put the 3 here. 4 and 5 still yet to come. Right, so there, and then the 5 would go up here, so that would be the 5 of the 5. So look at that for a second. Now let me put the waves on this. So this is a very real possibility here. So if I take that 1, now let's put the wave on it. You can kind of see it. So could that be 1, 2? And then I'm going to put the wave on this as well. So let's look at that. So let's see, what do I want? I want that hot, and I want this. So let's see if that all fits. Right, you see how you kind of construct that and say, okay, ABC is there, right? Why you know, you got to check yourself. So I look at it and I go, I'm quickly drawn to the fact, to the idea, and my inclination to think that that's not done yet. But so your first thought is, okay, well, why am I jumping to that conclusion? So you got to challenge yourself every time you put up a count and say, well, what if I'm wrong? What else could be going on? Well, this could be, as I get down here, I've got 5 waves going in here. Well, there's no reason that couldn't be the 1 wave going in of the 3rd wave here in green. Right? So can I build that roadmap to get me up here? That's the first algo target. Doesn't mean that that's where we top. Just you got to know it's there. So 3, 4, and 5. Does that make sense? To complete the 5th. Now let's put that on and put the whole thing together. So let's go back out to a 1 hour and see if that makes sense. Could that be what we've got here? So I got to open the whole thing up. Does that make sense? 1, 2, big 3, 4, and I'm getting all the subdivision necessary. All of this in an effort to top out to get my 3rd before I go 4 or 5. So putting that all together from that low. Right, that's quite a process. But I mean, you know, if you're watching this, you're into technical analysis. So that's how I approached it. I worked backwards from this pivot, saying, could I qualify each one of these significant pivots into an Elliott count that made sense, where I could qualify everything along the way? And if I'm qualifying, where am I? If this is my 4, my 5 is coming in. And it's the 5 of what? 5 of my 3rd. Right, so I'm going to go all the way back down to that 15-minute and then wrap it up here. So we look at this. So how are you going to know? Well, you know that's the bitch of it. You're not going to know. So let me take some of these waves off here real quick until you get more information. So all you get are tendencies and tells. So let me get that wave off, put it back together this way. Back to that, coming wave off. All right, so sometimes when you get that many numbers and this many lines, it's so hard to tell what's going on. So I try and clear up the chart for you so we can see, does it make sense? Well, how are you going to know? Well, first tell is going to be, do we pause here? Do we get a retracement here that is bought? Well, if I work from this is my 2, excuse me. So if I've got a 1 going in, as I complete this 5 wave here, as I was just showing you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if that's a completed 5 wave, well, the next tell is going to be, am I coming down here to pivot here in the area where I'd expect it to, or am I going down and heading down? If I'm heading down, then we go back to where I first started, and 4 is not done yet. Right? Do I get a 2? Do I get a higher low? So here we've got a low, higher low. Do I get another higher low, and then can I push through and then get a higher high? Signs of a trend, which would imply that now we're in the 5th. We're in the process of completing the 5th. We're underway in the 5th, right? And we're not going to know that until we see what happens here. Right? I would not be a buyer here, right? Myself, right? That is, as far as I'm concerned, as it relates to what I see here, that's paying retail. Give me a retracement so I can buy it wholesale. If you want to keep it in those kind of terms. No way to know, right? No way to know. So again, all I can do is just use these tendencies. So from swing low to swing high, well, here we are sitting in the golden zone. That's a reasonable place to see that pivot. But if we get through it, well, then I got to reconsider, because I know that the tendency is there for a B. A B often will go to the 786, can go higher. But if we start moving beyond that, does that make sense that I might have some sort of an expanded flat? Well, it's always a function of trying to identify the 5s and the 3s. Right now, I can see a 5 wave there. And all the corrections appear to be in 3s. And I've got the subdivision here to allow this to complete. So for, you got your bullish goggles on, 1-2. If you're not sure, looks to me like this may be that the 4 has got one more push down. And again, remember, I'm on a 15-minute here, so I'm getting a lot of detail. Take it back out to the hourly, which is sort of my base camp for analysis. What can I see on the hourly? Well, it still looks to me like this is unclear, and there's just no way to know if that 4 is complete yet until I get more information. So would I be a seller there? No, I would not be a seller here. The trend is clearly higher. So why would you be a seller there? Leave that to the algorithms that are kicking in to sell it as it approaches that 618. If they can push it down here, fine, great, do it, have at it, because I'm just going to buy it. So because all I'm looking for is where's the next relationship. So if I work from my swing low here to my swing high, obviously what's important to me was, look here, I get some confluence. So I got my 50 and my algo target relative to this golden zone sitting here. Right, there's my algo target, which would be, it would be deep for a 4, but given the length of the third, that wouldn't surprise me. So we'll see, right? You kind of, a lot of times in trading, there's no definitive answer, right? Not that there's always I'm absolutely sure of what it is, but we can position ourselves, we can go, well, I can look at that and say, odds are high enough, and the reward is significant enough to offset the risk that I would have to take to get into that trade. Right now, sitting here as we bump into the golden zone, I sure as hell wouldn't be. I'd be doing nothing, just waiting for more information. Now, if you're a bull and you love this project, a retracement to the 2, yeah, it's buyable because I can control the risk there. I can buy this if maybe a front run on the 50, if we get into the 50 to the 618 zone, I can buy it with a reasonable stop. I've got pretty good upside here. So even if I think about that from a risk reward, so if I'm a buyer, we'll call it, again, I'm hypothetical here. If I'm up here at the 618, so if I trade that as a 2, so let me clean this up so we can be precise about those numbers. So if I work from that as a 1-2-1-2, and I'm a buyer right in here, so I'll get this tightened up. Is there enough there? All right, stop. Let's do it again. Let's do it this way. So a buyer at the 50, stop under the 618. Algo target above. All right, that's what I'm trying to get. Well, you have the first algo target right there. That's 2.27 to 1. Big algo target up here where you're trying to get yourself positioned to get into it. Well, there at least you got 7 to 1. Tradable? Absolutely. Absolutely. Particularly if you're very bullish on this for whatever reasons that you've done some research, you've read about the project, you like it, the trend, whatever the pattern is that you're looking at. We're above the Vegas wave. We've got all sorts of bullish signals. The question we're looking at and asking ourselves is, where's the next opportunity where I can look to get into this trend, have reasonable risk reward, and tee up a trade. Well, here, not a bad place to do it. If I'm stopped out and this starts to go down deeper, okay, all right, well, I take a small loser. All I've got now is more information to help me identify where I am. Maybe the 4 is not in. Now I'm looking for the 4 there. I'm always looking for the next opportunity to be a buyer in a market that's trending like this. So next play, here's my 50, here's the algo target. What's the risk reward on that? So if I can buy it here at this 50, my first algo target, again, that doesn't have to stop there, but if I'm reasonable about that risk, well, there's 10.7 to 1. I wouldn't give it too much beyond that. But there's 8 to 1, giving it a little cushion. 8 to 1 with that as a target. This I love. So if it's offered down here, this correction gets more complexity, and it's offered down here. To me, that's a must buy. I know algos will buy it. Pivot swing low, swing high, 50%. Algos are going to buy that. So I want to get in sync with them if I can. No way to know yet. Just no way to know. So again, as I will tell you, a lot of times in trading, it's patience. Patience is your friend. Wait until something sets up. Wait for your pitch is another way to look at it. Wait until you see the setup that you have confidence in. Not certainty, but confidence in the probability structure of it in terms of where you are. And if you're wrong, then what's likely underway to where you can reevaluate, take your small loser, reevaluate where's the next opportunity. All right, guys, I ran kind of long there. I didn't mean to get that long, but I guess I just took that long to kind of walk you through that whole process. So hopefully that's something that you learn from. Just as a reminder, if this stuff, if you're into this kind of, I think of it as puzzle solving for money. You can think of it that way. If you're into this kind of analysis, you can always visit us over on our website and learn more about what we do. So everything that I do here on YouTube is really, it's a real-time application of the methodology that we're teaching. It's not entirely Elliott Wave based. That's just a piece of it. It's not entirely algo based. That's a piece of it. It's not entirely pitchfork based or median line based. It's combining all of those components into a cohesive methodology is really what we try and teach you. And if that's of interest to you, you might give us a visit over on our website at TradeDevils.com. We run a private Discord where it's very, very active and just a lot of content, a lot of ways for you to access this methodology and make it your own. So that's kind of my wrap up for the day. TradeDevils.com. If you'd like to learn more, we offer everything from our members Discord to private coaching to we want you to learn. We want to teach you and show you that this is a way that you can be profitable in the markets. And ultimately, it's always about managing the risk. And that's the name of the game in trading. Okay, guys, I'll wrap it up there. A happy Saturday to you. I'll probably see you next week. All right, bye-bye.